What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show. Thank you for making me a part of your day. Obviously, I got the Coach Prime sunglasses on because we're going to be talking a little bit of football today. Divisional round of the NFL playoffs is finally over, and we have our matchups for the NFC and AFC Championship games, and we're almost set for Super Bowl 58. Again, thank you all for joining me today. I apologize for not posting on Monday. I wanted to wait until the games were all over so I can finally, make an episode like this. I actually have been really craving to talk about this sort of stuff that's been going on in the NFL right now, especially the week prior to Conference Championship week, and then obviously 2 weeks after that, we got the Super Bowl. So thank you again for being patient with me. And if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to the videos and make sure you share with your friends. Keep those subscriptions coming in, guys. And I really appreciate everyone who tuned in last week and made me a part of their day, where I talked about things that you need to be successful in 2024. I got a lot of good feedback on that episode. A lot of my close friends and family members really took inspiration from that, and I really hope it, opened your eyes a little bit and made you realize what you should prioritize in 2024 and how you should, pursue your life throughout 2024 and for the rest of your life. And I really hope I gave good insight on things that you should really prioritize in this year and for things going forward. And once again, everyone, thank you for tuning in this week on this beautiful Tuesday morning. And it is still freezing cold out in Ohio. Nothing new here. It's supposed to warm up real soon, get into the 50s next week. So, I'm really hoping that that's the case. I'm over this winter weather. I'm over the cold. I can't do it anymore. This is one of the main reasons I've talked about moving from Ohio, is because it's just so annoying dealing with the cold weather, especially driving in it. Ohio drivers aren't good, and I'm a good driver, so I know what I'm talking about when I say Ohio drivers suck. So, Ohio, step your game up when it comes to your driving on the roads. It's just annoying at this point. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, like I said before, the divisional round of the NFL playoffs is finally over, and in my one episode, I predicted Washington that would beat Michigan in the college football playoff national championship game. I was so wrong. Jim Harbaugh had those boys ready to play, and it just proves that the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, that's one of the many reasons why the Pac-12 is being dissolved, is because, competition. There was really no competition on that field. Now, it wasn't quite TCU and Georgia level of disappointment, but, there was still some big-time plays made by both teams, but in the end, the better team won. Part of me kind of knew that Michigan was going to win that game. I seriously thought Washington's offense would have been just too much for Michigan, but I was completely wrong. And Michigan's offense really stole the show, and J.J. McCarthy and Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum and Jim Harbaugh, those guys stole the show. But let's get into the games that have happened the past couple weeks. Obviously, in the wild card round, I'm sorry, Cowboys fans, your team is absolutely pathetic. Dak Prescott, MVP talk, hush up with all that shit. Dak Prescott is not the most valuable player in this entire league. It doesn't matter what happens when it comes to Dallas. I do not care about the notion of this is our year, this is our year. And every single Cowboys fan on planet Earth says that. It's always next year. It's always next year. You're starting to sound like Browns fans, but at least Browns fans have hope for the future, because I think Dak Prescott's contract is just absolutely and utterly ridiculous. I don't understand Jerry Jones giving Dak all that money, but that's what you get. That's what you're paying for. You get a B to B plus quarterback on what really became a CeeDee Lamb reliant team. You can't ask Dak Prescott to be a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson. You can't ask Dak Prescott to be any of that, because he's not that. There's no it factor when it comes to Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has had it good in his career. If you really want my honest opinion, I think Dak Prescott is a slightly more athletic version of Kirk Cousins. That's the reality of it. Kirk Cousins, while I've had my issues with him, I think he's a better thrower of the football than Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott has been spoiled, to say the least, when it came to teams that he's played on over the past couple years and really throughout his career. If you really think about it, going back to his rookie season, he had the best offensive line in football. Zeke Elliott, a rookie, along with Dak, both rookies in their inaugural season together. Zeke Elliott stole the show. He was easily considered a top 3 running back after his first year in the league. Dak Prescott was looked at, okay, he could be the future of the Cowboys. And I thought partially, yeah, that could possibly be the case. I thought he was more athletic than Tony Romo. Obviously, I think Tony Romo, he was a good quarterback, a little overlooked in my opinion, but at the same time, I still don't think Dak Prescott could even play at that level the way Romo could have early on in his career. Honestly, ever since Romo fumbled that snap against Seattle, he was never the same quarterback after that. But back to the point, Dak Prescott has been spoiled with talented teams over the past couple years throughout his career. Like I said, both him and Zeke were rookies, and Zeke led the league in rushing behind the best offensive line in football per Pro Football Focus that year, of course. Dez Bryant, while on the older side, he towards the back end of his career, but he was still a solid playmaker, that's for sure, and a solid defense. And yet again, they lost to Green Bay that year to Aaron Rodgers. I believe they were the 1 or 2 seed that year, and then Aaron Rodgers and that immaculate throw to Jared Cook to set up the Mason Crosby game-winning field goal and stun the Cowboys. So ever since then, what notable achievements has Dak Prescott really achieved? I get it with Mike McCarthy that they've won 12 games. Like, they've had one of the highest winning percentages in the regular season in the NFL the past 3 years, especially with Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott together. But at the same time, there's got to be changes made in Dallas. You got absolutely obliterated by the youngest team to participate in the NFL playoffs in I don't even know how long. Jordan Love and the Packers, tip of the cap to them. Obviously, different story when it came to the Niners, even though we'll talk about that game later, but I really think that the Packers should have beat the 49ers. And like I said, I'll go into that. But Dallas, man, you sucked. That's putting it lightly. A 27-0 lead at one point at home when you were undefeated at home the entire year. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are great at beating bad teams. That's what Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott are good at. They beat up on the horrible teams. They suck in all the energy. They suck in all the talk. Excuse me. And, they drive up the hype for Dallas like this is finally our year. And just like Stephen A. always says, Stephen A. Smith from ESPN First Take, he always says it. The Cowboys are an accident waiting to happen. And yet again, I called it on my buddy Luke Papala's show. On my buddy Luke Papala's podcast, I talked about, and this was a couple weeks ago, I said that the Cowboys, yeah, they do look good. But they're an accident waiting to happen because it doesn't matter. And Luke talked about them making the playoffs again. I'm like, the Cowboys do make the playoffs every year. It's not a shock. Like, I'm not surprised in that NFC East that they end up making the playoffs because the Eagles were hit and miss some years, and the Cowboys really own that division. Obviously, the Giants and Commanders stink, so that's irrelevant. But here's the big issue. It's just you do not have a quarterback that can take you over the top and win you Super Bowls. Dak Prescott's not that guy. I'm sorry. He's not that guy. Dallas needs to go shopping for another quarterback eventually. I do not know who that quarterback would be. But in reality, Dallas should be drafting a quarterback this upcoming draft in 2024 in April. I don't see any reason to keep running it back with Dak Prescott over and over and over again. It's insanity. Dallas has nothing to show for it. They have not been to a Super Bowl since before I was even born and a thought at that point in time. It's been a long, long time. And honestly, I'm over the talk of Dallas. For a little bit this year, Yeah, I bought into the Cowboys a little bit just because of how badly they were beating up on teams. 45-10 here, 45-7 there. It didn't matter what it was. I was buying into the Cowboy hype train a little bit, but again, like usual, they came tumbling down. They were an accident waiting to happen, and that was on me. That was my fault. I shouldn't have been that hyped up on Dallas a little bit, but in the back of my mind, I knew who we were talking about. The Cowboys, Jerry Jones running his mouth all the time, Mike McCarthy, not the greatest game manager when it comes to time possession or anything like that, and Dak Prescott, who's good, but a B to B plus quarterback. That's all he is. He's nothing special. He's not a Mahomes. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's none of those guys. He's good, but he's not an elite thrower of the football, and he's not an elite quarterback. So eventually, Cowboys fans, it's time to realize that Dak Prescott is not the guy, and I'm pretty sure a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans feel that way, but I've been dying to go on a tangent about the Cowboys for a couple weeks now. Obviously, I just wanted to wait until the divisional round was over just to talk about it all, but, hats off to Green Bay for that game in the wild card round. It really stomped Dallas, and Dallas, I don't know where you go from here, because you're completely reliant on CeeDee Lamb, and Tony Pollard didn't do anything this year for you guys. So I don't know where you go from here. Luckily, I'm not a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, and I could care less. So we're going to move on to the divisional games. So let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans. Baltimore won 34-10 in Baltimore. C.J. Stroud, obviously, hat off to C.J. Stroud. He's already the best Ohio State quarterback to ever play in the NFL. And that isn't close whatsoever. This dude deserves Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. He deserves all those rewards. Because honestly, if you really think about it, he'll probably get MVP votes. Now, I don't think personally C.J. Stroud is the MVP of the league, but I can understand why people would give him votes. I can understand why he would be considered an MVP candidate. If you look at the history of the Houston Texans, their quarterback play has been pretty awful for the most part. Other than a couple years with Deshaun Watson, that's another issue that I talked about many times. I thought Watson could have been possibly the answer, but obviously his off-the-field actions speak otherwise, especially taking 2 years off of football for all that crap. Doesn't matter. C.J. Stroud can easily be considered an MVP candidate because of what he achieved this year, and the Texans, nobody had any expectations for them. Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Devin Singletary. Their offense is Dalton Schultz and Brevin Jordan. This offense is... The Texans are going to be scary for a long time. I think the Texans found their guy. Hats off to them. But yet again, unfortunately, I think the Houston Texans were a great story. I don't necessarily thought they were a great team. Obviously, first-year head coach DeMeco Ryans did a fantastic job turning around this defense in a way. Now they went 11-8 overall throughout the year, so good for them. This was a step in the right direction. They found their franchise quarterback, and they're set for the next 10 to 15 years. So C.J. Stroud's going to be around for a long, long time. But Houston was not ready to compete with Baltimore. They just weren't. Obviously, that score was tied at halftime. I believe it was 10-10 at halftime. So score 10-10 at halftime. Now, a part of me, because I'm a Steeler fan, I was hoping that the Texans would beat Baltimore, but I knew that it wasn't going to happen. I knew that was way too far-fetched to think about, but Baltimore has done this before. Lamar Jackson was 3-1 in the playoffs before this matchup, before their latest win against the Texans. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens were known for kind of choking in the playoffs. They're almost like Buffalo. We'll talk about Buffalo later. Ooh, boy. That was a shit show. But Lamar Jackson has all the accolades you can want in a quarterback. Fantastic runner, and he's become a damn good thrower of the football. Like, really good. Lamar Jackson's easily one of these top three. I would put him in a top 3, top 5 quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And I don't think that's not a debate anymore. Lamar Jackson is the real deal. Already one-time MVP. He's on his way to his second. I'd be surprised if Lamar Jackson didn't win it. He's having a hell of a season. But they didn't ask Lamar Jackson to just do too much this game. He was 16 of 22 for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. no picks, and 11 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are they set themselves apart from every other team in the league. We saw that when they played the 49ers, who many think is the best team in the NFC still. They stomped them out. Just the reality of it. Baltimore is completely built different than any other team in this league. And honestly, it's not even particularly close. So, hats off to Baltimore. And Lamar Jackson just keeps proving why he is an elite talent in this league. Obviously, they're going up against the Chiefs, but it's at Baltimore. This will be the toughest road test for Patrick Mahomes to deal with, and he's only had one road game in his 6-year career, and that was last week against the Bills. But I think it's going to be a good game, but we'll talk about the other games in a little bit. So Baltimore took care of business with Houston. Houston gave them a little scare in the first half, and honestly, I kind of expected that just because Baltimore having a first-round bye, you're not as loose, you're not well prepared immediately, but it was clear in the second half that Baltimore is light years ahead of what Houston is. And, a little scare in the divisional round. Baltimore's been used to that. A lot of teams who are number 1 seeds and number 2 seeds before when they had byes, they got some scares for sure. So Baltimore handled business, and no shock there. Lamar Jackson has proven why he's the MVP, and deservingly so. Cowboy fans, do not tell me Dak Prescott is of the same value as Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson goes down, Baltimore, I don't even think is in this position. We saw Lamar Jackson get hurt. They missed the playoffs. I believe it was last year or 2 years ago. Baltimore missed the playoffs because Lamar Jackson got hurt. Dallas's Dak Prescott got hurt one year. They were still winning games. Obviously, that was when Philly was on the rise, but they won games with Cooper Rush at quarterback. That was more system. Lamar Jackson is clearly the more valuable player, and that's not even close. So Lamar Jackson, pretty sure he's on his way to his second MVP. Now we're going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. Now that was 49ers fans, you guys should have lost this game. Hats off to the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love. Jordan Love at the beginning of the season was being told that, he's not the guy to lead Green Bay in the future. He's no good. He shouldn't be replacing Aaron Rodgers. He's a bust. He's a bum. Well, learning behind Aaron Rodgers for all those years and then finally getting the keys to the offense, later this year, after the bye week, Jordan Love was on a tear through this league. He was probably up there when it comes to play that happened on the field. Jordan Love was one of the best to do it in the NFL this year. Now, obviously, the stats for this game, they don't tell the whole story, but Jordan Love went 21 of 34, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So, the 2 interceptions, obviously, one was, the game clincher, the sealer. It is what it is. But Brock Purdy, 23 of 39, 252 yards, and 1 touchdown. 49ers fans, if I'm the 49ers, I have concerns about Brock Purdy. I really do. In his playoff games, I believe he's completing less than 60% of his throws. So just over half of his throws he's actually completing. I watched the game. Brock Purdy was throwing the ball all over the place, willy-nilly. He's throwing dirt balls to Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. I seriously think the 49ers, while they won, yes, they beat the Green Bay Packers, the youngest team to ever make the playoffs in NFL history, whatever. And hats off to Green Bay. Green Bay is going to be a force to be reckoned with real soon and in the near future. I think Green Bay is on the rise, and they'll be competing for championships real soon. But San Francisco has become so reliant on Christian McCaffrey for the most part. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey had 2 touchdowns, but they ride Christian McCaffrey's coattails. That's what Brock Purdy does. For the longest time, people were here's the main argument for Brock Purdy. Can he win shootouts? Can he play from behind? Can he play in inclement weather? Can he play in when all circumstances aren't perfect? So obviously once Deebo Samuel went down with an injury, he wasn't the same player. He just wasn't the same quarterback. Constantly relying on Christian McCaffrey to do everything for this team, that's not sustainable in this league. While Christian McCaffrey is easily the best running back in the NFL, at the same time, as a quarterback, you got to step up in that situation and make plays on your own. And while he did lead the 49ers to the game-winning touchdown drive, obviously it was Christian McCaffrey that punched in the final score to win it. But the problem is, I don't see this being sustainable when it comes to, product that happens on the field. If you take out Deebo Samuel, which is right now, and he may not even play against the Lions this upcoming Sunday in the NFC Championship game. It's 50-50 at this point, according to Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter reported that 49ers consider it 50-50 as to whether wide receiver Deebo Samuel will be able to play in Sunday night's NFC Championship game versus the Lions due to the shoulder injury he suffered versus the Green Bay Packers. So obviously that's concerning already, and I think Deebo Samuel is one hell of a player. I really do. But this team rides or dies through Christian McCaffrey right now. If this was any other team, if San Francisco played Dallas, for example, I can't say in full confidence that, obviously, let's take out the fact that Dallas completely imploded at home. Let's take out the fact that Dallas completely choked and had one of the worst games probably in recent memory. Hypothetically speaking, let's say Dallas won. And let's say it was in an okay convincing fashion, like a 31-20 game, but it really not being that close. Judging based off what San Francisco did, I wouldn't trust San Francisco to beat Dallas. Now, both teams have their issues, but I want to see Brock Purdy when it, like a little bit of rain, take out Deebo Samuel. They're not the same quarterback. Lamar Jackson's Ravens have been injured to hell, battered, bruised. He's without his best tight end, Mark Andrews. He's on his third string running back. His left tackle or right tackle, whichever one it is hit and miss most games when it comes to either playing or consistency. Doesn't matter. John Harbaugh says, Lamar, go win us a game. Lamar Jackson can do that. Patrick Mahomes can do that. Josh Allen can do that. Guys like Joe Burrow, when they're healthy, can do that. Brock Purdy, I do not believe, is the guy for San Francisco moving forward. And I would have genuine concerns about this. So Brock Purdy obviously led them on the game-winning drive against the Packers, even though I thought Green Bay should have won that game. Easily, they could have won that game. It could have went either way, but 49ers advanced to the NFC Championship again. All right, let's move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Detroit Lions. Now, there's a difference between a great team and a great story. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a great story for this entire year. I don't necessarily think they're a great team. Baker Mayfield did have a resurgence here. I've been saying for a long time, especially what happened to Cleveland against the Texans in the wild card round. I said for a while that Baker Mayfield should have still been a Cleveland Brown. But at the same time, nobody expected anything from this Tampa Bay team whatsoever. They were not picked to win their division. They weren't picked to go to the playoffs. They weren't picked to get this far. But that was a great story. Like Baker Mayfield's redemption arc, really. Baker Mayfield, he had himself a hell of a year, and I think Baker Mayfield definitely deserves another contract. I don't think he's definitely a franchise quarterback with the right system and the right coach. Just like just like a lot of quarterbacks, especially I think Baker Mayfield is better than Brock Purdy, but Baker Mayfield needs the right coach, the right system. He needs stuff in place for him to succeed, and honestly, this was a perfect fit for him. It showed. He had every chance to beat the Lions, but, I think Detroit is just a better team overall than Tampa Bay. So hats off to Baker Mayfield. He had a hell of a year, and he should feel proud of himself for that. And I definitely think Baker Mayfield earned himself another contract. Now, obviously, Tampa Bay has a lot of free agents that are coming up. Linebacker Levante David, linebacker Devin White, Mike Evans, the stud wide receiver. And obviously, Baker Mayfield is a free agent. But I think Tampa found their guy. I think Tampa will move forward with Baker Mayfield. So the Detroit Lions are in the NFC Championship now for the first time since 1991. I was not born, and I wasn't even a thought when that happened. But hats off to Detroit. Honestly, Jared Goff, again, the most disrespected quarterback in the entire NFL. Jared Goff has put this team on his back and has carried them to, this is his second NFC Championship game. And it goes to show that it wasn't all Sean McVay. And I don't think it's all coach or all quarterback. Obviously, it helps if you have both. The right quarterback and the right coach, obviously, that's how you win Super Bowls. Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, they work together. They're tough. The Lions, wow. Honestly, it's just crazy to me because the Lions have been one of the doormats of the NFL for a long time. Shout out to the Lions front office and everything like that. The Lions front office have built themselves a good-ass team. That's for sure. Their offense loaded with weapons. Obviously, Jared Goff playing some of the best football of his career. Again, disrespected for a long time, traded for Matthew Stafford. Obviously, Matthew Stafford got the Rams a Super Bowl. It's kind of funny. Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff did for their opposite teams than what they could do for their original teams. Matthew Stafford ended up winning the Super Bowl, and the Rams haven't done that since Kurt Warner was quarterback for them back in 1999, I believe. And then you got Jared Goff winning the Lions' first playoff game in 30-some years. You know, that's historic. And I think Jared Goff and the Lions have a good shot against the 49ers this upcoming Sunday. So, obviously, the offense for the Lions is just loaded with guys. Jared Goff, obviously, still, like I said, disrespected, undervalued, but one hell of a quarterback. Jahmyr Gibbs, the sensational running back out of Alabama. Everyone wrote him off as a bust pick. Like, you shouldn't waste a first-round pick on a running back. I don't know. After watching Gibbs play this year, I can see why Detroit made the right selection when it came to that. David Montgomery backing him up, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams. This offense and a great offensive line. This offense is high-flying. Obviously, the main issue with Detroit is their secondary. It's like Swiss cheese from time to time, but their front seven is loaded with studs. So Detroit advances to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 1991, and they will play the 49ers. So one final game we're going to talk about is Buffalo and Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes really is something, isn't he? He's been in the league 6 years, and he's going to be playing in his sixth consecutive AFC Championship game. That's unheard of, and it makes me sick, honestly. Early on in Patrick Mahomes' career, I was rooting all for him because I wanted to see someone finally take down Brady. Who's the next GOAT? And I'm not gonna discredit anything Patrick Mahomes has done in his career. He's phenomenal. Honestly, he's the second coming of Brady, in my opinion. There is just so much to love about Patrick Mahomes, but when you look at big-time networks, ESPN, Fox, it doesn't matter which. Mahomes this, Mahomes that, Mahomes this, Mahomes that. I'm over that, and I was really hoping Buffalo would have beat the Chiefs, but yet again, Buffalo cannot get over the hump when it comes to playing Kansas City in the playoffs. Again, I don't know where you go from here for Buffalo. Some people said that Buffalo's Super Bowl window has only slightly closed. I disagree with that notion. I really think that Super Bowl window is just cracked open, just a little bit. I don't know if Buffalo can get over the hump against Kansas City. If you think about it, Kansas City's offense and wide receivers led the NFL in drops this entire season. They led the entire league of it in drops. And all of a sudden now, Patrick Mahomes, kind of a, soft night. 17 of 23, 215 yards, no turnovers, 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco running the absolute hell out of the ball, 97 yards and a touchdown. And obviously, Travis Kelce, 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's older and brittle, but still probably the best tight end in the entire NFL. It's no question. But cool, calm, collected. That's what Kansas City did. That's what Kansas City has done throughout the entire reign so far of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Buffalo trembles, overthinks so much when Patrick Mahomes is playing them. You can see it during the game. I watched one of the final drives, running the ball with James Cook right up the middle, right into the teeth of the defense, trying to eat some clock, trying to minimize the amount of time that Patrick Mahomes gets with the ball. But that's exactly it. They're thinking about Mahomes and what he does, what he brings to the table. Now, part of me still thinks the NFL is scripted in a way, but I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of the show today. But Buffalo literally thinks about Patrick Mahomes lives in Buffalo's head rent-free. You can even see it when it came to their play calling, trying to run out the clock, waste as much time as they can to make sure that Patrick Mahomes doesn't get the ball back. I mean, we saw it 2 years ago, I believe. I think it was 2 years ago. 13 seconds. Patrick Mahomes needed 13 seconds to drive his team into field goal range and then eventually beat Buffalo in overtime to go to the AFC Championship again. Buffalo cannot get over the Patrick Mahomes hump. They really can. And yet again, Buffalo became Josh Allen reliant, Josh Allen dependent, Josh Allen this, Josh Allen that, Josh Allen, go save us the game, go win it for us, save us. That's been Buffalo the past 3 years. Now, I thought that personally they got over that because they started running the ball with James Cook. Josh Allen wasn't throwing the ball as much. They weren't asking him to run so many times. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen had 39 pass attempts and 12 carries the entire game. At one point, when I saw the statistics, it was 63 offensive plays for Buffalo. Yeah, Josh Allen had over half of those snaps, over half the entire offensive snaps. But yet again, Buffalo reverted back to their old ways and asked Josh Allen to bail them out yet again. I don't know what it is when it comes to Buffalo, but they can't be so Josh Allen dependent every single time. There are a bunch of teams in this league that are dependent on one player. And I talked about it earlier, how the 49ers are completely reliant on Christian McCaffrey, especially when Deebo Samuel goes down. And the Dallas Cowboys are completely reliant on CeeDee Lamb for any sense of offense because he's the only receiver that's consistent enough to get open and actually make catches. And Dak Prescott isn't really that guy. And Buffalo and Sean McDermott can't keep asking Josh Allen to bail them out every single week in, week out. This is not sustainable. So I really think, because if the Chiefs led the entire NFL in drops and now all of a sudden are kicking it into high gear, and this was without Kadarius Toney this entire game, you got guys like Rashid Rice, Marquez Valdez-Scantling making plays. These guys had butterfingers the entire year, and now all of a sudden they're catching everything in sight. That's scary if you're a fan of anybody in the AFC, is because Kansas City, the offseason's coming real soon. Free agency, wide receivers will be on the market, wide receivers in the draft. Kansas City is going to just reload. And I thought Patrick Mahomes, honestly, was not the same player without Tyreek Hill, because when in doubt, fuck it, chuck it. Tyreek Hill's down there somewhere, and he'll make the catch. But obviously, Patrick Mahomes proved everyone wrong when it comes to this. Cool, calm, collected, poised, great planning, great scheming. They reap the benefit. Kansas City wins 27-24, and they advance to their 6th straight AFC Championship game. And it really does baffle me still that I'm not the only one that thinks the same way about Buffalo. The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Colin, I'm going to play this clip for you. I have two clips I'm going to play. Obviously, this one by Colin Cowherd, the host of The Herd on Fox Sports. He talked about the Bills being completely reliant on Josh Allen.
I thought Buffalo was going to win this weekend. They weren't as reliant at the end of this season on Josh Allen. They developed a run game. They drafted and developed new weapons. Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Khalil Shakir. They could blow you out. They could win close. They felt more efficient. They fired their OC. They were on track. It really felt like something. And they did so much well against Kansas City. 3 75-yard touchdown drives. They had more first downs and more total plays and dominated time of possession, and they were great in the red zone. And they had, look at third down. They were 7 of 14, and they were at home. And yet yesterday they reverted back to Josh Allen, save us.
Exactly. Josh Allen, this is all Buffalo has been doing the past couple years with Josh Allen as their quarterback. Asking him to bail them out completely and go win and save them the game. This is not sustainable. The offensive line for Buffalo has always had its issues, but like Colin said, I thought they finally found their groove, actually balanced attack, running and throwing the football with James Cook and then Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid, Gabe Davis, and a solid defense. Obviously, part of it is that the fact that Buffalo had a shit ton of injuries when it came to their linebacking core and stuff like that. Obviously, that was a big factor in why Isaiah Pacheco was able to run roughshod on them. But at the same time, they can't be so reliant on Josh Allen to constantly bail them out in situations of need. And, of course, Tyler Bass missed that go-ahead tying field goal at the end. But, like I said, I'm not the same one who feels this way, and I've felt this way a long time. In my opinion, obviously, anyone who's watched football their entire life, such as myself, realize that we grew up in the best era of quarterback play. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger were basically the three best quarterbacks in the AFC for a damn near a 20-year time span. And I believe since it was in 2005, from the year like 2005 to 2018 or 2017, I want to say, the AFC Championship game has been represented by Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Ben Roethlisberger 15 of the 16 years or something like that. So, and now in this new age of NFL that we've been getting the past couple years, I believe it. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is, I would say, the modern day Tom Brady. And Josh Allen, I think, is more the Peyton Manning of this era. He's going to put up a lot of numbers. He's going to win a lot of games, but not have the playoff success of Brady. And then if you want a Big Ben comparison, I would say Joe Burrow is the Big Ben of the AFC now. But Josh Allen cannot keep bailing this team out, and Sean McDermott can't keep expecting Josh Allen to bail them out when they need him most and completely and utterly rely on solely Josh Allen to go out and win games. Now, you need your stud quarterbacks. When you have an elite quarterback like Josh Allen, yes, I guess it is important to lean into him, but when he's your only sense of offense, you're handicapped at that point. So, like I said, Buffalo relies too much on Josh Allen. They got to do something in the offseason. I don't know, and I don't really know where you go from there, in my opinion, but sooner rather than later, something needs to change in Buffalo because whatever's happening right now is just not working. Yet again, the Chiefs beat Buffalo in the divisional round and go on to their 6th straight AFC Championship game. Pat Mahomes has not, ever since entering the league, Pat Mahomes has made it to the AFC Championship every single year. Obviously, he's a 2-time champion. We'll wait to see on Sunday. So, let's talk about the conference championship matchups. We're going to talk about the AFC first. Baltimore and Kansas City. Lamar Jackson against Pat Mahomes. Honestly, I really think that The Baltimore Ravens are just too good right now. I really think the way Lamar Jackson's running and throwing the football, it's one thing to play in Buffalo. I think it's going to be a completely different animal for Patrick Mahomes to go into Baltimore and actually beat the Ravens. I think the Ravens are just playing too lights out football right now to be stopped. And Lamar Jackson is just otherworldly right now. While the Chiefs are good, I still think they're definitely a Super Bowl favorite, but at the same time, I'm going to lean with the Ravens, especially since their defense is one of the smartest defenses in the league. They know how to make adjustments on the fly. They know how to bracket every single one of your wide receivers on the field. They know how to load the box and get after your quarterback to force them to make mistakes. Baltimore is just too good right now. And in my opinion, the cornerbacks for Baltimore, while they're not scrubs by any means, Kansas City's wide receiving core is going to have their hands full, and Patrick Mahomes is going to have his hands full when it comes to playing against this Baltimore defense. And the Chiefs' defense played really well against Josh Allen for the most part of that game against Buffalo, but I think it's a completely different animal when it comes to prepping for Lamar Jackson. And I think Lamar Jackson is going to have a big game. I think he finally gets over the hump and finally gets his team to a Super Bowl like we've been thinking about for the past couple years since he entered the league. Give me Baltimore to win 37-34. I think it's going to be a shootout. I really do. But at the same time, it could go either way. I'll actually make the prediction that I think Baltimore is going to beat Kansas City 28-21. That's my final score prediction on the AFC Championship. All right. Let's talk about the NFC Championship. The Detroit Lions going to San Francisco. Now, a lot in this game, honestly, is going to be riding on the shoulders of Brock Purdy. I talked about earlier how I don't think Brock Purdy is necessarily the guy, but Brock Purdy has a lot of issues going for him. Simply because of the fact that I don't think he's otherworldly. Obviously, he was Mr. Irrelevant, drafted last in the NFL draft a couple years ago. And then you got going up against Jared Goff, a former number 1 overall pick for the Detroit Lions, who are playing out of their mind football right now. But if I'm Brock Purdy, this is the time where he has to absolutely step up. Like, he has to quit being so reliant on Christian McCaffrey. He's got to quit being so reliant on Kyle Shanahan's schemes. If you want my honest opinion, Kyle Shanahan might be one of the worst adjustment head coaches in the entire NFL. This man, I don't know what it is. It seems like he comes into a game with a fantastic game plan, a complete script that Brock Purdy can follow to the letter. Everything goes well. They play with the lead. Their defense is beating up on opposing teams. But what happens in the second half when you go up against a head coach that can actually make adjustments? We saw what happened when Kyle Shanahan was an offensive coordinator with Atlanta. We all remember the 28-3 game. And Kyle Shanahan, also with poor play calling in the second half of the Super Bowl against the Chiefs a couple years ago, had a 20-10 lead and blew it to the Chiefs. There was no conceivable reason I saw Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs coming back and winning that Super Bowl. But guess what? It happened. And Kyle Shanahan has been notorious for choking. But I do not think the 49ers have the right quarterback. The 49ers have had great teams over the past 10 years or so. They've had some good teams. But the defense is always good. The offense was always good. But it's always been subpar quarterback play. Don't tell me Colin Kaepernick was that guy. He had one great year, and that was the year they went to the Super Bowl, and look what happened when they played the Ravens. Completely stomped out for the most part of that game. Obviously, that was when the lights went out during that Super Bowl, and that time off, coaches made adjustments. Jim Harbaugh ended up almost leading his team back to win against John. But if we're being honest, a lot of this is lying on Brock Purdy because this man requires CMC to be on top of this game, Debo to be healthy, the weather to be cooperative. The second that a little bit of inconvenience happens, a wide receiver goes out. Debo might not even play this week, which, if we're being real, I think Debo will play. But at the same time, if he doesn't play, I don't think that the 49ers end up beating Detroit. I don't. Because Brock Purdy is not the same quarterback without all of his pieces in place. Christian McCaffrey playing otherworldly. The defense being studs. George Kittle being healthy. Brandon Ayuk being healthy. All of these factors play into why Brock Purdy can play or can't play. And Stephen A. Smith from ESPN First Take talked about it earlier yesterday that he doesn't think that the 49ers can beat the Lions if Deebo Samuel doesn't play. So I'm going to play that clip for you right now.
The San Francisco 49ers are not beating the Detroit Lions without Deebo Samuel. I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't believe it. I think they need Deebo in order to advance and get to the Super Bowl and have a shot to win it. You don't have a snowball's chance in hell, in my opinion, of beating Kansas City or Baltimore without Deebo.
So, and I share the same opinion with this. Everything needs to be lined up for Brock Purdy. Everything needs to be, quote unquote, perfect for him in order for him to shine. And I don't think that that's sustainable in the NFL. I don't think the 49ers, if you look at the history in the NFL, if you look throughout the NFL, 9 times out of 10, the team with the best quarterback in that division finishes first and moves on. So the remaining 4 quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, and Patrick Mahomes. I'm sorry, Brock Purdy is the last quarterback on that list. Patrick Mahomes is otherworldly. Lamar Jackson, otherworldly. Probably the top 2 quarterbacks in the entire NFL. Jared Goff, underappreciated and undervalued his entire career and has been doing great things for Detroit. And Jared Goff hasn't always had a perfect team. Lord knows that's the case when they went 0-10 to start his first year in Detroit. But Brock Purdy is not at the level of Jared Goff. Give Jared Goff the Niners team. Give Lamar Jackson the Niners team. Give Pat Mahomes the Niners team, even though he doesn't need them. Give guys like Kirk Cousins the 49ers team. They'd be infinitely better with any of those guys over Brock Purdy. In my personal opinion, I think the Lions will end up beating the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to say a 28-27 slugfest. I really think Detroit, with their defense, the way they're playing right now, the way their pass rush is getting after the quarterback, the way Aiden Hutchinson is playing, the way Jared Goff is throwing the football, Amon-Ra receiving, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery running the rock, and Sam Laporta being a stellar young tight end in his rookie year. I'm going to take Detroit to go to their first Super Bowl and win against the San Francisco 49ers 28-27. So my final Super Bowl prediction is going to be the Detroit Lions against the Baltimore Ravens in Super Bowl 58. I really think that that's going to be the case. And here's the funny thing. Obviously, those are the teams I think are going to go in. I'm going to put up a display for you guys right now. The past couple Super Bowls, the NFL has teased the logo. But you notice in the logo, the color palettes? The colors mirror the 2 teams that are going to be in the Super Bowl. Let's see. You had Cincinnati and the Rams. Color palette says it. And then you had the Eagles against the Chiefs. Color palette suggests it. This year for Super Bowl 58, it is purple and red, signifying the Ravens and 49ers. It makes coincidence hard to swallow when it comes to this. This is why I said partially the NFL scriptwriters are really making their money's worth, because I honestly didn't think there was a shot in hell that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs could have went into Buffalo and beat Josh Allen in Buffalo this year. I really didn't think that was going to be the case, but it was. So, and then if you look at this other picture, obviously it just shows the final 4. And then it shows the 2 little colors in the middle, red and blue. Maybe the NFL is, obviously the red signifies AFC and the blue signifies NFC. Well, what if the NFL is looking at that too? Like, okay, we'll throw them off with the logo, but we'll also throw them off with the, color palettes there, because that can coincidentally say Chiefs versus Lions. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but some of this stuff is just making coincidence hard to swallow. So eventually we'll see. I really do think Baltimore and Detroit are going to be the winners this upcoming weekend in the NFC and AFC Championship games. So we'll see eventually what happens. I look forward to it, and it looks like it's going to be a good weekend for football. And that's going to wrap it up this week on the Lake Show, everyone. Like I said earlier, thank you for making me a part of your day. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Lakeo. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better